Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mom's View. I'm Colette, this is Kaylee, this is Carly, and welcome back.
Welcome.
Welcome. Peace. All right. So lately, I know we've wanted to kind of keep it light, but I am not sure if I can do that today.
You're digging in deep today? I was not prepared.
I'm digging in a little bit deep.
I don't cry. I don't want to cry.
I don't want to cry.
I was crying this morning about some Beyonce song. I don't even know. It was just a good one. You know what's so funny? Braylee was saying yesterday she was really emotional, and she was like, I'm so emotional. And I was like, well, welcome to being like a woman. You know, like our hormones are just different. And she was like, no, it's not like that time. And I was like, I know. It's just like forever.
It is like every day.
I'm like, your hormones are just changing and different, and it affects you differently. So it's fine. Mm-hmm. Just embrace it. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry that you have to embrace it.
I know. It's just part of it. But it's awesome too. So
it is awesome, but it's also really hard. So recently I had a friend, somebody that goes to my church that I've been close with, passed away. And I went to her funeral, and one of the things that really stuck out to me was that she was somebody that always saw the glass as half full and not half empty. And I've been thinking about that concept and how I've been really trying to do that in my own life, and how there are different periods of times in life where, you know, sometimes or some days or some minutes we see the glass as half empty, and then other times we see it as half full. And I feel like with I don't know, was thinking about that concept this morning and looking at my house and how it's so trashed right now. Like really, really, really bad. Like probably the worst that it's ever been. You know, dishes that get left in the sink for days, and my laundry is just a mess, and like my closet, I'm not even gonna go there, but and it like a part of it feels really like I need to get this fixed. But I'm also at a period of my life where, you know, I guess before I had time where I was really working on my house, but inside I was stressing out. You know, like I was trying to look great on the outside, you know, oh, so-and-so's coming over, hurry and fix the house and clean it up. And now I'm kind of just like, I'm letting that go, and I'm really just not caring. Like people come over and I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm with you on that.
Like, yeah, I know, we live here.
Yeah, we do. It's cool. Just, you know, that smell, I don't know what it is, but it's fine. But I also feel like, you know, trying to find that balance for me, I'm in a shifting period, and I'm not totally shifted yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I see it, like before I would have looked at my house and been like, super shame, you know, just, I'm a horrible person. I can't keep my house together. Like, what is wrong with me? And now I'm like, I'm letting that go, and it's good. But at the same time, it's like, is it good? You know, because I'm just letting my house go, because I feel like before I was focusing on my house and the outward appearance. Like, I'm using my house as like a metaphor or like just a small example of life in general, but I was trying to make it look good there, but I was a mess inside. And now I'm working on the inside, but it kind of looks really messy from the outside. And there's something about this whole process that to me is really beautiful. And it's really scary at the same time, because I feel this major, you know, midlife shift, and not really a midlife crisis, because I feel like I've already had enough crisis, and I'm on the other side of the shift. Yeah. And it's hard for me to think about topics and things that I want to talk about on the Mom's View or even on my own channel that aren't heavy, because I feel such a huge shift inside of me.
Right. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because a lot of times I feel like I'm excited for the things that I'm learning. I get really excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing for me. I want to help you guys understand this. I want to help share this. I want to help somebody that's going through crap, you know, get through it, because I'm starting to get through, my crap. Yeah. But I also get this feeling of like fear, where I start to think of a topic and it's like, all this stuff floods in my mind. We're like, oh, I have to talk about this first if I'm going to talk about this, and I have to talk about this, then I have to, you know, admit this, or, you know, like, It's just very scary. And so just kind of going through all of this in my mind, I thought about Brene Brown and her book, Daring Greatly, and all of her books really, but she talks about vulnerability. You know, she's a shame researcher, and she talks about courage. and connection and all of those things, how we have to have this, you know, before when I was like putting up this like, okay, everything's great, see my clean house, I'm good. It was like I wasn't being completely vulnerable. Like I was in some ways with my life, but I also wasn't living to my fullest. Because there wasn't courage. Like I wasn't really putting myself out there. But I've noticed as I've been able to do that in smaller ways, like not necessarily all on YouTube, but in smaller ways in my own life, like it encourages, like I connect with people that I never thought I could connect with. So I have a few different quotes from Brene Brown that she talks about, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about a few of them. The first one she says is, courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. What do you guys think that means to you?
I think I remember that part of the book where she's like, it's not, you don't just show up to the PTA meeting and be there so you're showing a face. Like, show up to the PTA meeting and voice your opinions and voice your ideas and your concerns. Because like you said, like too often we're physically present because we want to be there, but are we willing to be seen for who we are and like let that part of who we are be out, like voicing our opinion or not just being there physically. And I was like, that's so true. Like so often in church, I want to raise my hand and say something. I'm physically there, I'm being seen, but am I being seen if I'm holding myself back by not saying how I'm feeling or my thoughts? And I think that's a big part of being seen.
I think that also it's like stirring the pot. Like, this is bothering me. Yeah. And I could stand back and be a part of the conversation from back, or I could step up and my voice is going to be heard and it's going to stir some crap up, but I'm still going to do it because
Amen,
I
sister.
deserve to have a say in what's happening. I deserve to be a part of the conversation. And I think that goes with everything from, you know, maybe saying something at the PTA meeting or even just in your home, you know, a conversation with your family or a conversation with family members. Like, my voice is also important.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, I want to be seen in that way. Even if it causes a fight.
Yeah.
I tried to snap and it was a silent one. I mean, lick those fingers.
You know, and that does take courage, I think, sometimes, because sometimes we're taught, you know, you don't want to, like, cause problems, you don't want to, like, step on toes.
Yeah,
but
like, don't offend that person, don't say this.
Or just, like, don't fight, you don't want that in your life. But sometimes it has, you know, like, if I could be quiet and then I'm going to be, like, really angry and I'm going to be hurt and I'm going to hold that in, or I can have courage and speak my truth, like Brene Brown also says. I guess everyone probably says that, but anyways, that's what I heard from her. And it might cause a fight, but I'm gonna feel better because I know I'm being who I am.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you guys have said, and I feel like courage, it can be so hard though. Like how do we do that? And I was thinking about that, where, you know, Brene talks about being vulnerable, having courage, and then worthiness and shame. And I think when I'm not courageous, one of the symptoms of, you know, fear and not being courageous is not having that worthiness, not feeling like, oh, my voice should be heard, or you know, maybe it's not that important. But then I also feel like there's another end of the spectrum where it's like we think we're being courageous by saying certain things or doing certain things, but we're actually just being hurtful.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's so hard to find that balance. And I've really been thinking about this because I feel like we're, you know, in the past I was more of a quiet person and I didn't say much. And then I went through this little phase where I was just like, I would say whatever. But then I realized that wasn't really nice.
It's like that saying she says, speak truth to their bullshit.
Right.
But I think I can specifically think of examples in my life where some people take that and run with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to find the balance in all things.
I also feel like finding that balance, sometimes those things need to be said.
Right.
She also talks about that. It's called her SFD, her shitty first draft, where sometimes you just have to get out all the bad things, and maybe it's not healthy to do that to somebody, but I love how she goes through that process of, like, you just get all the bad things out, and then you can, like, really, like, bring it all back down to earth and be like, okay, what did I really mean and what was just emotion, and how do I communicate
maybe write
that?
it down first.
Yeah.
Yes. Like
Get it all
literally
out.
make a first draft.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, if you do feel confident with what you want to say, and maybe if you feel like it has to be said, you have to own up to it too. And then you have to deal with the consequences after. I might say something, but I will be the first to be like, I am so sorry, like, and I will explain myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying it's okay to say the things that I said, but also own up to your own crap.
Yeah. That makes such a difference. When anyone is ever willing to accept their behavior or that they were wrong or possibly could be wrong, it just makes communicating walls immediately come down. As soon as somebody's like, I'm sorry, I know I could be wrong, it's so much easier to approach the truth that you're both trying to get to when you realize you have a counterpart in the communication and it's not all on them or all on you.
Right.
And I think a big part of owning your feelings is also owning your feelings and making sure that that person knows that that's just how you feel, and using I feel like sentences rather than you make me feel, because then
Right.
it just becomes this big finger pointing, the walls get built and no communication happens. I think when you get like, this may not be your fault, but it really hurts my feelings and I feel left out when I'm not involved in the group text, or because then it's about owning your feelings and the way it's making you feel rather than, well, you're just rude, you're leaving me out.
Right.
You know,
This
when
is your
it-
fault. I feel this way.
It's both communicating the same thing, but you own your feelings, like you said, and you use I feel sentences.
Mhm.
This just feels natural to do.
It's me.
When I feel. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that whole concept too comes back down to shame and worthiness. Because, like, if you do not feel worthy or you feel shame in any way, then it makes it really, really hard to own
Yeah.
when you've said something wrong or done something, because you'll keep, I like to use the analogy of a shame bucket. Like, when people are really, like, they don't have self-worth, they have a shame bucket that just keeps getting overflowed. Like, you might get offended by something somebody said, or you might get offended easily by, not being included in the group text, and it adds to your shame. It doesn't, you're not able to look at the situation honestly and think, okay, well, that hurts my feelings, but maybe, looking at the glass half full, maybe they didn't mean it this way, and even if they did, I can see why they may have not included me in this because of the thing I said or whatnot. But when we're in shame and unworthiness, then we can't look at ourselves honestly.
Yeah.
It's just the shame bucket's overflowing and we have to project it out onto somebody else and be like, no, it's you, it's not me.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that with myself and in my relationships where I don't want shame in any way because it makes me treat other people poorly. And I love the concept that Brene talks about is like courage to be seen and to be vulnerable. You can't have it without having a sense of your own worth, because then you'll just,
Yeah.
if you're vulnerable, then it's not safe because now your worthiness is being
Exposed.
exposed.
almost.
Yeah, like your unworthiness. I don't know. This is like a circle of stuff that I just feel like I've been learning about, and I'm trying to apply like the principles that I'm learning. But I also think that there's this balance that I'm trying to find between being too vulnerable or like too out there, or just enough. Because I feel like there are some things that we think we're being vulnerable, but we're just sharing too much.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just putting ourselves out there in an effort to find that worthiness.
Yeah.
But when we already have that worthiness inside, then we know where to set our limits. And when we feel worthy inside, we can also look at somebody else and their craziness and their projecting or their defensiveness and have compassion for that.
Right.
So I guess like the main thing that I was thinking about today is establishing that worthiness in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about it in an episode before where we like words of affirmation and just kind of establishing in us our worthiness so that we don't have to, hurt people in our own feeling of unworthiness.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I making sense, or am I just like blah, 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 blah?
Something that I thought about immediately was when I was like younger, going through a divorce at 20 or 21. Really, the cliche things of life are so true. The sayings, like as you grow, you learn so much wisdom and you learn so much about yourself. But I think one thing that's hard with vulnerability in relationships is I adopted this mentality that in marriage, I share so much with my husband that we're like one, right? And so when I went through a divorce, it seemed like part of me, so much of me was lost, and I like lost who I was and that worthiness, and I didn't feel worthy because I got a divorce. And as I grew and learned and worked through different relationships, I learned that to be the best partner in a relationship, you really have to be worthy in yourself, and you don't have to be one necessarily. You have to both make up the entity of marriage together, and one offers what maybe one is lacking, but you still have to know how to stand your own ground as in being solo in who you are.
Right.
And that was very confusing for me, because my mentality of marriage was we share everything, we do everything, we don't make decisions without each other. And then I really learned that like you have to have your own backbone and your own feelings and your own self-worthiness, and you have to have your own thought process in marriage. And it's okay if it's not the same as your partner's, because then you have something, a perspective to bring to the table. And I think that the defining moments of a marriage and in a relationship is where you learn that communication with your partner and how things work. I'm so grateful for Jackson. He's such a good communicator, and I really learned that that's when we find our growth in our relationship, is where we have these hard moments of sitting down. I hate making eye contact. I hate it when we fight, and I always will look everywhere else, and Jackson literally will get down on the ground on his knees and crawl around till he finds my eyes. And then it makes me laugh, because I'm like, you're ridiculous. And he's like, you're ridiculous. You're looking at your feet and you're talking to me, because I feel so uncomfortable. But those are the moments you will find strength in communicating, and you learn about yourself and you learn about your partner. But I think it's okay to stand solo and be your own person and own your own self-worth and what you want and what you don't want. And you don't necessarily have to share everything, and that's hard, because marriage is this very unifying thing. But that's what makes it beautiful, is it takes two parts to bring a relationship together, and it keeps, those two parts have to keep being two parts to make it one in the end.
Right.
It's very hard math. That's very hard math.
I think it's crucial to stand alone. I think it's absolutely necessary to stand on your own and to know who you are, because you can't get courage from someone else telling you you're brave, you're courageous, you can do this.
Right.
You have to dig down deep, and it is hard and it is painful and it is a lot of work, but you have to know that you are all of those things that you want to be.
Without anyone else.
No one can fix you but you. No one can give you the courage and the strength but you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so great to have a support system, and it's so great to have people cheering you on and loving you, but it comes down to you.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
But I view marriage now as like, I just had it so backwards. Like, you know that saying, like, you'll find your other half?
Right.
I'm like, no,
It's not
you're
true.
always a whole. That person just adds on to your wholeness.
Yeah.
It's not they're making up what you're lacking. And in some areas that is true, maybe, you know, if we're not getting too into it, but you have to be your own person, your own entity. Because after that first marriage, I just lost myself completely. I relied too much on what that gave me, like validity of who I was and my worth. And then when that like was severed, I was like, went through the hardest time of my life.
Right.
And I think that really refined me to get to where I'm at in my marriage now. We fight about the dumbest thing, like sharks. And what are we gonna fight about the other day? I don't remember. It was like, oh, him using his blinker. Like, just like the funniest things that are like life-changing things. But I'm like, that was a big life lesson to me. So I hope that helps somebody out there watching.
I was the same when I got married, actually. I was very much the same. And Casey was actually the one that was like, this is not a TV show. You know, I would expect all these roles, or he would say like, this is not the movies, this is real life. Like, you know, you do you. And I was just always like, what? I'm the wife. You take care of me. And this and that. And I was like, nope. You know, and it felt kind of mean to me in the time, but I'm so grateful now, because I do feel like I can stand on my own, because, you know, we didn't fall into those roles, and we didn't, you know, I feel powerful because of who I am. I don't, you know, and I feel powerful in my marriage because of that.
But I feel like that feeling that you have only strengthens your marriage.
Yeah.
And somebody said something that like, yeah, I could live without my husband, because then I was like, ugh. But I don't want to. And I'm like, that's such a good point. Like, we should be able to live. I don't know if that sounds too mean, but
No, it's true.
But I wouldn't want to, obviously. But it just gives you more confidence, and really just helps you own your life and who you are and what you want out of it.
Right. I really love what you guys said. And especially, I think that when you take, like, it's kind of scary thinking, oh, nobody can give me that courage. Nobody can give me that worthiness. It's kind of scary, but it also, at the same time, when you shift that perspective, it's amazing.
Right. It's very
because
powerful.
now
It's
you're
empowering.
the only one that can give that to yourself. And it doesn't matter who you meet or who you're not married to or what you don't have or what you do have. You have that worthiness. And you have the power to have that.
And you are enough.
And you are enough regardless of anything around you or your circumstances.
I feel like the world's changing.
It
We're
is.
talking about this. Okay, this is like kind of off topic, but it will get back. I've been watching this jail show about people going to jail. And it drives me crazy how they play the victim and how their circumstances are so bad. I'm like, yo, you ended up in that jail cell only because of the decisions you've made. And I think that when we get out of that victim mentality, no matter what has happened to us in life, whether we really were the victim of something, when we really empower, like, okay, maybe my childhood was sucky and my parents beat me or I didn't have an opportunity to go to school. That doesn't matter because you are in charge of your future. And I know that people, like, I just look at my husband and what happened in his life and how he's just owned every hardship, and no matter what, that didn't stop him from being who he is. That is amazing to me. When people stop playing the victim and they take that role of, I don't care how bad my past was, I know what I'm worth and what I want in my future, and I'm gonna own it, and I deserve better, and they move on and they're no longer the victim.
Right.
That's where I'm like, that really is the epitome of this life and why we're here.
And it's a concept that I think, like, we don't need to feel bad about because we've all been there before. Like, I definitely have been the victim in my mind so many times.
You
but
kind
I
of
also
have to play that role.
Yeah, I mean,
to get to realize you're playing it.
Right. And it's also like, honor that. Like, yeah, you were a victim. You are a victim. There are things that in life are really crappy that you didn't deserve. But you know what? If you stay in that place, you will always feel that way. And who wants to feel that way?
Such a good point.
Like, don't do that to yourself. And you're the only one that can get you out of it.
I love what you said, that it is a process though. Like, I do think there's so many parts of grieving and healing and moving on. And there was a time where, like, I felt like I did play the victim. But I think that eventually helped me heal. It's just knowing when to crawl out of that hole and stop playing that role.
And it's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
And I think it takes, that connection and that giving yourself compassion. It's being like, yeah, you were the victim, but it's okay. And you can move on. Let's put on your big pants and let's
big
go.
girl pants.
Yeah.
I got such big girl pants on, they have a stretch band on top. I'm really owning them today.
Because you have two girls right there.
Really got that big stretch band on today. Big girl pants.
I love it.
That was a good
Well,
topic.
thank you guys.
Who won the world? Girls! Everyone! They choose
I know.
to do it.
I try to keep it light, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to keep this light. I just, I'm
it.
feeling all these things, and I know sometimes it's like, what are you talking about? But for me, it's been a journey, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So thank you guys for your comments. They were so helpful.
I love
I
her.
love you.
Love you.
All right, thank you guys. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on the topic that we talked about today and any other things that you would like to hear from us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.